Senate will come back to order. The Senate will come back to order. All senators who have bills and resolutions, please bring them to the Secretary's desk at this time. Mr. Secretary, first reading of Senate bills and resolutions, please.
Senate Resolution 305 by Senators Beach of the 21st and others, a resolution creating the Senate University Admissions Study Committee and for other purposes.
Rules.
Senate Resolution 307 by Senators Anna Vitarte of the 31st and others, a resolution recognizing the importance of creating multiple diploma pathways for high school students.
Education and youth.
Senate Resolution 308 by Senators Anna Vitarte of the 31st and others, a resolution honoring the life and memory of Sergeant Barry Henderson and dedicating an intersection in his memory and for other purposes.
Transportation.
This completes the order, Mr. President.
First reading and reference of House bills and resolutions, please.
House Bill 761 by Representatives Carter of the 92nd and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend an act to provide a new charter for the city of Lithonia in DeKalb County, Georgia.
State and local government.
House Bill 763 by Representatives Hill of the 3rd and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend an act creating the Office of Commissioner of Catoosa County, approved February.
State and local government.
House Bill 764 by Representatives Hill of the 3rd and others, a bill to be entitled an act to authorize the city of Fort Oglethorpe to exercise all redevelopment and other powers under Article.
State and local government.
House Bill 765 by Representatives Hill of the 3rd and others, a bill to be entitled an act to create the Catoosa County Public Facilities Authority to provide for
State and local government.
House Bill 766 by Representatives Hill of the 3rd and others, a bill to be entitled an act to authorize Catoosa County, Georgia to exercise all redevelopment and other powers.
State and local government.
House Bill 767 by Representative Yurda of the 152nd, a bill to be entitled an act to amend an act to authorize the Magistrate Court of Lee County to charge a law library.
State and local government.
House Bill 768 by Representative Powell of the 32nd, a bill to be entitled an act to amend an act to provide a new charter for the city of Royston, approved April 13th, 1992, so as to provide for city council.
State and local government.
House Bill 770 by Representatives Ralston of the 7th, a bill to be entitled an act to authorize the assessment and collection of technology fee by the Magistrate Court of the Gilmore County to identify the authorized.
State and local government.
House Bill 775 by Representatives Bentley of the 139th, a bill to be entitled an act to amend an act to change the number of members of the Board of Education of Taylor County, approved April 7th.
State and local government.
House Bill 777 by Representatives Wilson of the 80th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend an act creating the State Court of DeKalb County, formerly known as the Civil and Criminal
State
Court.
and local government.
This completes the order, Mr. President.
Will the Secretary please read reports of standing committees?
Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Agriculture and Consumer Affairs has had under consideration the following legislation and has instructed me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation. House Bill 676, due pass by substitute. Respectfully submitted, Senator Walker of the 20th District, Chairman. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Economic Development and Tourism has had under consideration the following legislation and has instructed me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation. House Resolution 248, due pass. Respectfully submitted, Senator Thompson of the 14th District, Chairman. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Education and Youth has had under consideration the following legislation and has instructed me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation. House Bill 681, due pass by substitute. Respectfully submitted, Senator Payne of the 54th District, Chairman. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Ethics has had under consideration the following legislation and has instructed me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation. House Bill 531, due pass by committee substitute. Respectfully submitted, Senator Burns of the 23rd District, Chairman. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Finance has had under consideration the following legislation and has instructed me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation. House Bill 32, due pass by substitute. House Bill 587, due pass by substitute. House Bill 517, due pass by substitute. Respectfully submitted, Senator Huffsettler of the 52nd District, Chairman. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Finance has had under consideration the following legislation and has instructed me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation. House Bill 317, due pass by substitute. House Bill 469, due pass by substitute. House Bill 477, due pass by substitute. House Bill 586, due pass by substitute. House Bill 588, due pass by substitute. House Bill 575, due pass by substitute. House Bill 160, due pass by substitute. House Bill 574, due pass by substitute. Respectfully submitted, Senator Huffsettler of the 52nd District, Chairman. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Government Oversight has had under consideration the following legislation and has instructed me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation. House Bill 92, due pass by substitute. House Bill 619, due pass by substitute. House Bill 409, due pass by substitute. Respectfully submitted, Senator Harbin of the 16th. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Health and Human Services has had under consideration the following legislation and has instructed me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation. House Bill 458, due pass by substitute. House Bill 439, due pass by substitute. House Bill 605, due pass by substitute. House Bill 653, due pass. Respectfully submitted, Senator Watson of the 1st District, Chairman. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Health and Human Services has had under consideration the following legislation and has instructed me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation. House Bill 117, due pass by substitute. House Bill 128, due pass. House Bill 290, due pass by substitute. House Bill 369, due pass by substitute. House Bill 645, do not pass. Respectfully submitted, Senator Watson of the 1st District, Chairman. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Higher Education has had under consideration the following legislation and has instructed me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation. House Bill 67, due pass by substitute. House Bill 152, due pass. House Bill 291, due pass. House Bill 606, due pass. House Bill 617, due pass. Respectfully submitted, Senator Tippins of the 37th District, Chairman. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Insurance and Labor has had under consideration the following legislation and has instructed me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation. House Bill 254, due pass by substitute. House Bill 532, due pass. House Bill 454, due pass by substitute. House Bill 244, due pass. House Bill 303, due pass by substitute. House Bill 714, due pass by substitute. Respectfully submitted, Senator Burke of the 11th District, Chairman. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Judiciary has had under consideration the following legislation and has instructed me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation. House Bill 94, due pass by substitute. House Bill 194, due pass by substitute. House Bill 231, due pass by substitute. House Bill 272, due pass by substitute. House Bill 306, due pass by substitute. House Bill 327, due pass by substitute. House Bill 334, due pass by substitute. House Bill 338, due pass by substitute. House Bill 411, due pass by substitute. House Bill 443, due pass by substitute. House Bill 464, due pass. House Bill 591, due pass by substitute. House Bill 635, due pass by substitute. Respectfully submitted, Senator Strickland of the 17th District, Chairman. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Public Safety has had under consideration the following legislation and has instructed me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation. House Bill 179, due pass. House Bill 247, due pass by substitute. House Bill 495, due pass. House Bill 579, due pass. House Bill 466, due pass by substitute. House Bill 200, due pass by substitute. House Bill 255, due pass. Respectfully submitted, Senator Albers of the 56th District, Chairman. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Regulated Industries and Utilities has had under consideration the following legislation and has instructed me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation. House Bill 449, due pass by substitute. House Bill 480, due pass. Respectfully submitted, Senator Kauser of the 46th District, Chairman. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Rules has had under consideration the following legislation and has instructed me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation. Senate Resolution 281, due pass. Respectfully submitted, Senator Mullis of the 53rd District, Chairman. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Rules has had under consideration the following legislation and has instructed me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation. Pursuant to Senate Rule 2-1.10C, the Committee on Rules recommends the following legislation due pass by substitute. House Bill 141, due pass by committee sub. House Bill 465, due pass by committee substitute. Respectfully submitted, Senator Mullis of the 53rd District, Chairman. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on State and Local Governmental Operations has had under consideration the following legislation and has instructed me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation. Senate Bill 300, due pass. Senate Bill 301, due pass. Senate Bill 302, due pass. Senate Bill 304, due pass. Senate Bill 305, due pass. Senate Bill 306, due pass by substitute. Senate Bill 307, due pass. House Bill 703, due pass. House Bill 704, due pass. House Bill 732, due pass. House Bill 753, due pass. House Bill 739, due pass. House Bill 754, due pass. House Bill 757, due pass. House Bill 769, due pass. Respectfully submitted, Senator Anderson of the 24th District, Chairman. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on State Institutions and Property has had under consideration the following legislation and has instructed me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation. House Resolution 142, due pass by committee substitute. House Resolution 143, due pass by committee substitute. Respectfully submitted, Senator Harbison of the 15th District, Chairman. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Transportation has had under consideration the following legislation, has instructed me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation. House Bill 577, due pass by substitute. House Resolution 144, due pass by substitute. Respectfully submitted, Senator Ginn of the 47th District, Chairman. This completes the order, Mr. President.
Mr. Secretary, will you please read bills and resolutions for the second time? You get to do it all over.
Yes, sir. Senate Resolution 281 by Senator Miller of the 49th and others. Senate Study Committee on Violence Against Healthcare Workers, create. House Bill 32 by Representatives Belton of the 112th and others. Income tax credit for teacher recruitment and retention program, provide. House Bill 67 by Representatives Martin of the 49th and others. State government, public property, extended automatic repeals of certain provisions. House Bill 92 by Representative Gamble of the 15th and others. Health, transfer of vital records to state archives, revised provisions. House Bill 94 by Representatives Rich of the 97th and others. Crimes and offenses, provide for the crime of theft by possession of stolen mail. House Bill 117 by Representative Walensky of the 79th and others. Low THC oil patient registry. Ulcerative colitis as a condition for which low THC oil may be used for treatment, add. House Bill 128 by Representative Williams of the 145th and others. Health, prohibit providers from discriminating against potential organ transplant recipients due solely to the physical or mental disability of the potential recipient. House Bill 152 by Representatives Wydower of the 119th and others. Post-secondary education, exemption applicable to certain institutions operating on military installations or bases, revised provisions. House Bill 160 by Representatives Body of the 62nd and others. Revenue and taxation, water and sewer projects and cost tax, most, provide for audits of tax by state auditor under certain conditions. House Bill 179 by Representatives Camp of the 131st and others. Special license plates, support breast cancer-related programs, amend logo design. House Bill 194 by Representative Sands of the 180th and others. Criminal procedure, term of probation shall follow mandatory term of imprisonment for persons convicted of sexual offense, clarify. House Bill 200 by Representative Powell of the 32nd. Motor vehicles, issuance of Class C driver's license to operators of certain three-wheeled motor vehicles, provide. House Bill 231 by Representative Gaines of the 117th and others. Crimes and offenses, victims of stalking, expand applicability of protective orders. House Bill 244 by Representative Hogan of the 179th and others. Insurance, flood risk reduction, and enumerated list of county purposes for ad valorem taxes include. House Bill 247 by Representative Carson of the 46th and others. Uniform rules of the road, commission of an offense of distracted drivers, provide for penalty. House Bill 254 by Representative Lumsden of the 12th and others. Insurance Commissioner's Enforcement Authority with regard to adjusters, increase. House Bill 255 by Representative Holcomb of the 81st and others. Sexual Assault Reform Act of 2021, enact. House Bill 272 by Representative Ballinger of the 23rd and others. Juvenile Code, juvenile court to include children who are under 18 years of age, change jurisdiction. House Bill 290 by Representative Setzler of the 35th and others. Hospitals and nursing homes, policy during a declared public health emergency that limits patients' abilities to be visited by designated family members and friends, provisions. House Bill 291 by Representative Dempsey of the 13th and others. Education, tuition equalization grants at private colleges and universities, expand definition of approved school. House Bill 303 by Representatives Glanton of the 75th, JADA Act, enact. House Bill 306 by Representatives Gunter of the 8th and others. Corporations, partnership, and associations. Corporations may hold shareholders meetings by means of remote communication, provide. House Bill 317 by Representative Stevens of the 164th and others. Excise tax, revised definition of innkeepers to include marketplace facilitators, provisions. House Bill 327 by Representatives Montaham of the 17th and others. Organized Retail Crime Prevention Act, enact. House Bill 334 by Representatives Gullett of the 19th and others. Superior Courts, Clerks, Notaries Public, provisions. House Bill 369 by Representative Powell of the 32nd and others. Physicians, job description submission to Georgia Compost Medical Board, provisions. House Bill 383 by Representative Carson of the 46th and others. State government, certain contracts, Israel, provisions. House Bill 409 by Representatives Gunter of the 8th and others. Judicial Legal Defense Fund Commission, establish. House Bill 411 by Representatives Gullett of the 19th and others. Prosecuting Attorneys Oversight Commission, create. House Bill 443 by Representatives Leverett of the 33rd and others. Torts, transfer of structured settlement payments rights, provide new requirements. House Bill 449 by Representative Smith of the 133rd and others. Georgia Utility Facility Protection Act, revise. House Bill 454 by Representatives Newton of the 123rd and others. Insurance, certain coverage requirements concerning providers that become out of network during a plan year, provide. House Bill 458 by Representatives Cooper of the 53rd and 43rd and others. Georgia Composite Medical Board require certain training relating to sexual misconduct for members. House Bill 464 by Representative Scoggins of the 14th and others. Guardian and ward petition for appointment of temporary guardian of minor field in probate court may be transferred to juvenile court, provide. House Bill 466 by Representatives Powell of the 32nd and others. Motor vehicles, number of required hours in the intervention component of DUI, alcohol, or drug use risk reduction programs reduce. House Bill 469 by Representative Stevens of the 164th and others. Income tax rehabilitation of historic structures, revised tax credits. House Bill 477 by Representatives Watson of the 172nd and others. Income tax applications for credit and qualified donations of real property, extend sunset date. House Bill 480 by Representatives Washburn of the 141st and others. Property, creation, declaration, and priority of liens for labor, services, or materials performed or furnished by registered interior designers, provide. House Bill 495 by Representatives Crowe, the 110th and others. Georgia Bureau of Investigation and the Sexual Offender Registration Review Board, revised duties. House Bill 517 by Representative Carson of the 46th and others. Education, calculation of minimum revenue obligations for scholarships and tuition grants, provide for the inclusion of earned interest. House Bill 531 by Representatives Fleming of the 121st and others. Elections, no election superintendents or boards of registrars shall accept private funding, provide. House Bill 532 by Representatives Werkheiser of the 157th. Labor, Department of Employment Security, change certain provisions. House Bill 539 by Representatives Cooper of the 43rd. Medical Practice Act of the State of Georgia, institutional licenses, revised provisions. House Bill 574 by Representative Camp of the 131st and others. Animals, Companion Local Government Animal Trust Fund for reimbursement of impoundment expenses incurred by local governments, provide. House Bill 575 by Representative Dickey of the 140th and others. Ad valorem tax, authorized on premises processing and marketing of agricultural products as a qualifying conservation use.
Okay.
Yeah.
We can give you a break.
House Bill 577 by Representatives Carpenter of the 4th and others. Highways, bridges, and ferries proposal guarantee for bids upon certain projects, provide. House Bill 579 by Representative Oliver of the 82nd and others. Public safety and judicial facilities, enact. House Bill 587 by Representative Watson of the 172nd and others. Georgia Economic Recovery Act of 2021, enact. House Bill 587 by Representative Williamson of the 115th and others. Georgia Economic Renewal Act of 2021, enact. House Bill 588 by Representative Jaspers of the 11th and others. Transportation eligible expenditures, Georgia Freight Railroad Program provisions. House Bill 591 by Representatives Hogan of the 179th and others. Mental health, marriage and family therapists to perform certain acts which physicians and others are authorized to perform, authorized. House Bill 605 by Representatives Cooper of the 43rd and others. Health, provide for authorized electronic monitoring in long-term care facilities. House Bill 606 by Representative Nix of the 69th and others. Hope Scholarships, add Georgia Independent School Association to the list of accrediting agencies. House Bill 617 by Representative Martin of the 49th and others. Post-secondary education, student athletes may receive compensation for use of name, image, or likeness, provide. House Bill 619 by Representative Houston of the 170th. Heritage Trust Program, sale of Patrick's Fishing Paradise to a private entity, authorize. House Bill 635 by Representatives Leverett of the 33rd and others. Courts, each judge of the Superior Court, State Court, and Probate Court, and each magistrate shall have authority to perform any lawful judicial act, provide. House Bill 653 by Representative Jaspers of the 11th and others. Georgia Pharmacy Practice Act, Pharmacy Care, revised definition. House Bill 676 by Representatives Houston of the 170th and others. Georgia Farmers Market and Produce Terminal Development Authority Act, enact. House Bill 681 by Representatives Yerda of the 152nd and others. Education, course of study and financial literacy for students in 10th or 11th grade, provide. House Bill 714 by Representative Kelly of the 16th. Georgia Civil Practice Act, revise and provide for new requirements. House Resolution 142 by Representative Green of the 151st and others. Property, conveyance of certain state-owned property, authorized. House Resolution 143 by Representative Green of the 151st and others. Property, granting of non-exclusive easements, authorized. House Resolution 144 by Representative Williams of the 145th. Kate Poff Memorial Interchange, Baldwin County, dedicate. House Resolution 248 by Representative Stevens of the 164th Savannah Logistics Technology Innovation Corridor designate. This completes the order, Mr. President.
That was a great job. All right, it's now time for our morning roll call, almost afternoon roll call. Are there any motions to excuse? The chair recognizes right on time the senator from the 33rd.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning, y'all. Y'all excuse Senator. I ask for unanimous consent to excuse the senators from the 35th and the 38th for business outside the Capitol.
Without objection, the senators from the 35th and 38th are excused. Chair recognizes the senator from the 31st.
Thank you, Mr. President. I ask for unanimous consent to excuse the senator from the 23rd for business inside the Capitol.
Without objection, the senator from the 23rd is excused. Chair recognizes the senator from the 29th.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I ask for unanimous consent to excuse the senator from the 24th and the senator from the 27th for business inside the Capitol.
Without objection, the senators from the 24th and 27th are excused. Chair recognizes the senator from the 43rd.
Thank you, Mr. President. I ask for unanimous consent to excuse the senator from the 22nd.
Without objection, the senator from the 22nd is excused. Are there any additional motions to excuse? The chair sees none. The secretary will call the roll. Senators, signify your presence by voting the yea switch. The secretary will unlock the machine. Have all senators voted your attendance? Have all senators voted your attendance? Mr. Secretary, please close the machine. All right, it's now time for our morning devotional, and ask that all senators, despite your excitement, all senators, please take your seats and cease all audible conversations. Would ask that our doorkeepers secure the chamber at this time. I'd like to recognize the senator from the 9th to lead us in our Pledge of Allegiance and to introduce to us our chaplain of the day.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And now the Georgia flag. I pledge allegiance to the Georgia flag and principles for which it stands, wisdom, justice, and moderation. Good morning, everyone. I am delighted to introduce our chaplain of the day, Reverend Orlando Scott, an ordained minister in the Christian Church, launched Christian Church Disciples of Christ in Snellville during the initial days of COVID-19, hosting a Bible study addressing anxiety. Since June of 2020, Amplified Christian Church has partnered with Gwinnett County Department of Community Services to provide fresh produce for the Southeast Gwinnett community. Currently, he is actively developing green church initiatives at the Shiloh Mission and Missionary Ministry Center to address food insecurity, food justice, and holistic living. Reverend Scott is a staff chaplain at the Northside, Gwinnett, and Duluth Medical Centers, where he specializes in emergency and critical care chaplaincy, and serves as the contextual education supervisor for the first and second year seminaries at the Chandler School of Theology at Emory University. Reverend Scott is an active trustee and board secretary for the National Benevolent Association, the Health and Human Service Ministry for the Christian Church in the U.S. and Canada, and is a founding member of the Georgia Regional Mental Health Awareness and Stigma Reduction Ministry, creating mental health awareness programming for clergy and congregations in the Christian Church. Reverend Scott is a graduate of Morehouse School of Religion at the Interdenominational Theology Center, where he completed his Master's of Divinity with a dual concentration in Christian education and theology, and a master's certificate in IT, applied project management, a bachelor's degree in the urban ministry and public policy, and biblical education from Beulah Heights University, plus an Associate of the Arts in Multimedia from the Art Institute of Atlanta. He's the proud father of 2 amazing teenagers. He is an outdoor enthusiast and an avid reader of African diaspora history, particularly the Sea Island culture. Please join me in welcoming Reverend Orlando Scott.
I told the president of the Senate you all are a rowdy bunch, and so I expect some communication back. I would be remiss as I stand, it is Women's History Month, that I mention my spiritual predecessors, the ancestors that stand, whose shoulders I stand on. My great-grandmother was a founding pastor of the Second Community Baptist Church in Sandersville, Georgia. My great-aunt, Ruby Hinton, my grandma H.E., my grandmother Hilda, my grandmother Ora Overton. And so these ladies are the ladies whose shoulders I stand on. I would like to express my, again, sincere gratitude and thanks to Lieutenant Governor Jeff Duncan, Secretary of the Senate, Mr. Cook, and my sponsoring Senator, Senator Nikki Merritt, and to my Senator Kim Jackson for your continued efforts to help us as we, as Georgia residents, and to create legislature for this constituency. To those in the virtual audience, thank you for your prayers and support. In 2019, I had the privilege to sit in on Dr. Robert M. Franklin's class, The Principles and Practices of Moral Leadership at Candler School of Theology. And over the semester, he challenged us to consider what it is to be a moral leader, or more aptly, what characteristics that a moral leader possesses. My brothers and sisters, therefore, for a few moments, I want us to think, who is a moral leader? While we continue to see domestic terrorism continue to horrify and strangle our fragile democracy, spreading fear across communities of color, and as we navigate the multiple pandemics of xenophobia and classism and sexism and racism, nativism and trans and homophobia, in addition to COVID-19, distinguished members of this body, I ask you to think about how we will determine the quality and trajectory of our leadership. The leadership guru John Maxwell once stated that leadership is influence, nothing more and nothing less. And if we believe like Maxwell, Senator Merritt, my former professor, the Reverend Dr. Percy G. Johnson, would say, the question becomes, if leadership is influence, then we must understand the nature of our individual and collective influence and decide how we will utilize our influence for the betterment of all humanity, not just our constituency, but who Dr. King called the beloved community. Second, we must discover who we really are. We must determine what grounds or undergirds our influence and what are the inputs that cultivate the best values and virtues that fuel the ethics of our influence, not for selfish gain, but in selfless service. And third, what is the gauge to determine the effectiveness of our influence? Sisters and brothers, if we are to be leaders and more appropriately moral leaders, we must resolve these fundamental questions. Secretary Cook, we find moral leaders in all measures and manners of life. Moral leaders, my sisters and brothers, are people who have individually taken up the challenge of standing in liminal spaces, in contested spaces, in spaces where we find ourselves confronted with the harsh realities of an unjust and inequitable world, but decide to stand and make a difference anyway. Moral leaders are people determined to labor to reframe and reimagine a new world. Reframing allows leaders to see possibilities where others see dead ends. It offers us the tools to break the imaginative gridlock of our situation by considering alternative perspectives. In his book, Moral Leadership, Integrity, Courage, and Imagination, Dr. Robert M. Franklin reflects on how his grandmother modeled moral leadership in crisis. Dr. Franklin's grandmother on the south side of Chicago de-escalated an impending gang fight by putting herself in harm's way for the sake of the humanity and the future of others. Dr. Franklin noted the courage of this unlikely moral leader as he said of his grandmother, extended an invitation, hoping that we would respond by loving the things that she loved and caring for the people for whom she cared. And if this figure he lifts as a moral leader, my brothers and sisters, then I would argue that moral leadership is one who applies the principles and practices of Yeshua as he instructed his student learners to do, to love your neighbor as yourself. And what it would be to consider what is love. The educator and ethicist Bell Hooks, borrowing from the social psychologist Eric Fromm, would say that the essence of love is respect, care, knowledge, responsibility, the nurture of spirituality of yourself and your others. You may be asking, what are you trying to say, Chaplain? I'm suggesting that when you draft your legislation or go into chamber or to your workplace or community, that you take into consideration what it is to be a moral leader, to love the homeless as you do the homeowner. I'm saying to love the rural poor as those scraping by on minimum wage as much as you love the urban rich and the business owner. I'm saying to love the incarcerated made in the image of God as well as you love those walking around free. I'm saying to love the non-documented person as well as you love the documented. I'm saying to love those who are otherly abled as well as you love those who are quote unquote normal. In closing, as we consider what lies ahead of us in this ever-changing social landscape, I will leave you with the words of Mother Martha Battle McCann to Dr. Robert M. Franklin. Work hard, be sincere, change lives on a daily basis, and you may or may not be noticed. But never forget that your work is undeniably important. The things that people take for granted and which they have great pride are on your shoulders. Be faithful, march forward, and as you continue this session, be a moral leader. Let us pray. God of our weary years, God of our silent tears, the God who has brought us safely thus far along the way, I pray that you would infuse these your leaders with moral fortitude to make the uncomfortable but necessary decisions that benefit the beloved community, to bind together the various people groups of this state in mutual respect, reciprocal care, open-minded knowledge, to be diligent and responsible, and the grace to differ with dignity, so as to lift up, sustain, and advance the highest qualities of whom we are as citizens of this great state of Georgia and this nation. In the spirit of the one who holds and heals us all, I pray. Amen. Thank you for your time.
Are there any unanimous consents? The chair sees none. Does any senator wish to rise on a point of personal privilege? The chair sees none. Do you have a consent calendar of privilege resolutions before you? Does any senator wish to remove a resolution from the consent calendar? Chair sees none. Is there objection or adoption of the resolutions on the consent calendar? The chair hears none. The resolutions on the consent calendar are adopted. Are there any motions to withdraw and commit? Chair sees none. You have a consent calendar of local bills before you. Mr. Secretary, are there any objections filed to any bills on the local consent calendar?
Mr. President, there are no objections filed.
Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the Committee on State and Local Government, which is favorable to the passage of the bills on the local consent calendar? Chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Questions on the passage of the bills on the local consent calendar? All those in favor vote yea. Opposed, nay. The Secretary will unlock the machine. Have all senators voted? Have all senators voted? I'm going to give it a minute here. We got one coming. Okay. Tell them not to run. We got two now. Table for two by the window. At least one senator thinks I'm funny. Senator from the 32nd was in the parking lot. All right, have all senators voted? Mr. Secretary, please close the machine. On the passage of the bills on the local consent calendar, the yeas are 48, the nays are 1, and the bills having received the requisite constitutional majority are therefore passed. Chair recognizes the majority leader for a motion.
Mr. President, I move that House Bill 611 be engrossed.
Ms. Secretary, please read the caption.
House Bill 611 by Representative Chokas to the 138th, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Part 3 of Article 3 of Chapter 5 of Title 50 of the OCGA relating to small business assistance so as to change the definition of small business and for other purposes. This completes the order, Mr. President.
The majority leader has moved that House Bill 611 be engrossed. Is there objection? There is objection. Would the majority leader, he waives. Would the minority whip speak to the objection? He waives. All right, all those in favor that House Bill 611 be engrossed, vote yea. Opposed, nay. The Secretary will unlock the machine. Have all senators voted? We got one coming, okay? Mr. Secretary, please close the machine. On the motion, the yeas are 35, the nays are 18, and the Senate has moved that House Bill 611 be engrossed. All right, we're now moving on to the rules calendar, our favorite part of the day. Mr. Secretary, can you please read the caption of House Bill 567?
House Bill 567 by Representative Cooper, the 43rd, and others. A bill to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 12, Title 31 of the OCGA relating to control of hazardous conditions, preventable diseases, and metabolic disorders so as to revise provisions relating to newborn screening for various disorders, to create the Newborn Screening and Genetics Advisory Committee, and for other purposes. The Senate Committee on Health and Human Services recommends that this bill do pass by substitute. Respectfully submitted, Senator Watson the first, Chairman. Health and Human Services offers the following substitute to House Bill 567, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Title 31 of the OCGA relating to health so as to provide for the health of mothers and infants in childbirth, to require healthcare providers, healthcare facilities, and pharmacies to provide access to the Maternal Mortality Review Committee, and for other purposes. This completes the order, Mr. President.
Chair recognizes the senator from Bainbridge to present the measure.
Thank you, Mr. President. House Bill 567 simply sets up a formal process for adding to newborn screening tests as science proves that those tests are effective. That's all it does. I'll be glad to answer questions, Mr. President. Otherwise, I'll yield the well.
You have no questions. That's a great start to a long rules calendar. Any other senator wish to speak for or against House Bill 567? The chair sees none. The question is on the adoption of the committee substitute. Is there objection to adoption of the committee sub? Chair hears none. The committee sub is adopted. Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the committee which is favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Is there objection to the main question being ordered? The chair hears none. The main question is ordered. Questions on the passage of the bill by substitute. All those in favor vote yea. Opposed nay. The secretary will unlock the machine. Have all senators voted? Have all senators voted? Mr. Secretary, please close the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 51, the nays are 0. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed by substitute. Mr. Secretary, please read the caption of House Bill 346.
House Bill 346 by Representatives LaRisha of the 169th, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Article 3 of Chapter 11 of Title 31 of the OCGA relating to emergency medical services personnel, such as to authorize the administration of hydrocortisone sodium succinate in 2 patients with congenital adrenal hyperplasia under certain conditions and for other purposes. The Senate Committee on Health and Human Services recommends that this bill do pass by substitute. Respectfully submitted, Senator Watson of the first. Health and Human Services offers the following substitute to House Bill 346, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Article 3 of Chapter 11 of Title 31 of the OCGA relating to emergency medical services personnel, so as to authorize the administration of hydrocortisone sodium succinate by paramedics to patients with congenital adrenal hyperplasia and for other purposes. Senators Al of the 48th and others offers the following Amendment 1 to House Bill 346 by Senate Committee Health and Human Services substitute on line 22, add after hyperplasia or any adrenal insufficiency. This completes the order, Mr. President.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 7th to present House Bill 346.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, House Bill 346 comes from a issue that arose in the district in which I represent, and the representative from that particular area, and he brought this bill forward in the House, and I'm carrying it here in the Senate related to our constituent, and that's where the title of the bill come from in Jerem's Act. It come from an incident that happened in relation to this young man. He has the rare disorder of congenital adrenal hyperplasia, and what this bill would do is it simply sets up a process to give permission to paramedics to be able to administer a life-saving medication to these individuals that have this rare condition in those circumstances where they may interact with paramedics in that regard. And it would set up that process for training and also allow them the ability to do it. If there are no questions, Mr. President, I'll yield the well. There is an amendment. It is a friendly amendment, and I'll defer to our senator from the 48th to speak to that. But if there are no questions, Mr. President, I yield the well and appreciate your support.
You have no questions.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 48th to speak to amendment number 1.
Thank you, Mr. President. So this is a friendly amendment, as we noted, and I'm very gratified to work with both the author of the bill and the sponsor of the bill in the Senate on this. So just to explain the reasoning behind this amendment. So congenital adrenal hyperplasia is a disease in which the body does not make enough cortisol, which is the body's stress hormone, right? So we treat this disease by injecting steroids to replace this hormone. However, CAH is just one of a class or a subset of conditions that are treated similarly. So the goal of this amendment is basically, if we're going to pass this bill, and I think this is a good bill and I'm going to vote for it, we might as well help more people who have a similar condition, right? And some of these conditions include Addison's disease, which I think some people heard of, people whose adrenal glands don't make corticosteroids for whatever reason, pituitary problems. There's a wide host of medical problems that can be covered in this same way. So we might as well extend the life-saving capabilities of using hydrocortisone, which is a drug that there's a very little downside of giving it in these cases, to help more people. So basically, if you just look at what the amendment is it says, after it says congenital adrenal hyperplasia, we just add or any adrenal insufficiency, which should cover the rest of this class of disease states. That's the amendment. Pretty easy. I'm happy to take any questions.
Chair recognizes the doctor from Savannah to your left.
Does the senator yield?
I do.
Yeah, isn't it true that this would be from the patient's own supply, and the EMT or paramedic would help, and that there's really no downside in emergency crisis situation that this drug is given?
Thank you. That is an excellent question, and you are absolutely correct. The hydrocortisone that would be administered would be from the patient's own medical supply. So just think of it as similar to giving a patient their own EpiPen. It's that analogy. And you are correct that the downside of giving hydrocortisone is extraordinarily low when compared with the downside of not giving it, because it really is a critical emergency when patients are in adrenal crisis and need this hydrocortisone.
You have no more questions.
Thank you.
Does any other senator wish to speak for or against the amendment or House Bill 346? The chair sees none. All right, we'll take up the adoption of amendment number 1. Is there objection to adoption of amendment number 1? The chair hears none, and amendment number 1 is adopted. The question now is on the adoption of the committee substitute as amended. Is there objection to adoption of the committee sub as amended? Chair hears none. The committee sub as amended is adopted. Is there objection to agreeing the report of the committee which is favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Is there objection to the main question being ordered? The chair hears none, and the main question is ordered. Questions on the passage of the bill by substitute. All those in favor vote yea. Opposed, nay. The secretary will unlock the machine. Mr. Secretary, please close the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 54, the nays are 0. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed by substitute. All right, want to make an announcement here. There are boxed lunches that are outside, and we've kind of made a group decision here that we're not going to pause for lunch. So if you want to grab a boxed lunch, eat, and we're going to keep moving with the rules calendar. We'll take a break here in a little while, but for now we want to gain some momentum and get through a pretty long rules calendar today. So just want to let you know boxed lunches are ready, and that's all I've got. Mr. Secretary, please read the caption of House Bill 146.
House Bill 146 by Representative Gainsley, the 117th, and others. A bill to be entitled an act to amend Article 1 of Chapter 20 of Title 45 of the OCGA relating to general provisions regarding personnel administration, so as to provide for paid paternal leave for eligible state employees and eligible local board of education employees, and for other purposes. The Senate Committee on Insurance and Labor recommends that this bill do pass by substitute. Respectfully submitted, Senator Burke of the 11th, Chairman. Insurance and Labor offers the following substitute to House Bill 146. A bill to be entitled an act to amend Article 1 of Chapter 20 of Title 45 of the OCGA relating to general provisions regarding personnel administration, so as to provide for paid parental leave for eligible state employees and eligible local board of education employees, and for other purposes. This completes the order, Mr. President.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 49th to present House Bill 146.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, I bring before you House Bill 146, and this is for paid parental leave for eligible state and local Board of Education employees and other state employees. It provides for 3 weeks of paid parental leave upon the event of a birth or adoption. Full-time employees are eligible after 6 months, and it's limited to 120 hours for every 365 days. Each agency will promulgate the rules for their particular agency. And by the way, this was passed on a federal level for 12 weeks paid vacation, it's not vacation, family leave. And 246,000 state employees will be eligible, including teachers. This same measure passed the U.S. House of Representatives 146-1. If there are any questions, I'll be glad to take them. I urge your favorable consideration of House Bill 146.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 46th for a question.
Thank you, Mr. President. Will Senator yield?
Certainly.
I'm just curious, what is the amount of personal leave these state employees receive already?
I do not know. I'm sorry.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You have no more questions.
Thank you, Mr. President. I ask for your favorable consideration.
Any other senator wish to speak for or against House Bill 146? Chair sees none. The question's on the adoption of the committee substitute. Is there objection to adoption of the committee substitute? Chair hears none. The committee sub is adopted. Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the committee which is favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Is there objection to the main question being ordered? The chair hears none, and the main question is ordered. Questions on the passage of the bill by substitute. All those in favor vote yea. Opposed, nay. Secretary will unlock the machine. Have all senators voted? Have all senators voted? Mr. Secretary, please close the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 52, the nays are 0. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed by substitute. Mr. Secretary, please read the caption of House Bill 44.
House Bill 44 by Representatives Cantrell of the 22nd and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 1 of Title 50 of the OCGA relating to general provisions relative to state government so as to provide that this state shall observe daylight savings time year-round and for other purposes. The Senate Committee on Government Oversight recommends that this bill do pass by substitute. Respectfully submitted, Senator Harbin of the 16th. Government Oversight offers the following substitute to House Bill 44, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 1 of Title 50 of the OCGA, relating to general provisions relative to state government, so as to provide that this state shall observe standard time year-round until such time as Congress authorizes the state to observe daylight savings time and for other purposes. This completes the order, Mr. President.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 1st to speak to House Bill 44.
Thank you, Mr. President. Representative Wes Cantrell and I have been working on this now for a couple of years, and this bill that is before you is a joint effort. We already voted on this once in that the Senate voted to go to standard time year-round until Congress allows us to go to daylight savings time and then go to daylight savings time year-round. Now, I will say that certainly the House has a different perspective, and you know, in these last few days, many times we do reach a compromise, and I would like to see something move forward. So if you'll bear with me, and let's pass this out again, and then we'll try to reach some kind of understanding of this issue. As if you don't need a further reminder, we're about 10 or 12 days now from the change in the time. I know we're about to get used to it. It generally takes us about 2 weeks, both the daylight savings time and the standard time shift. What we do need is to not necessarily be reminded by the science, but the science is certainly there, and that there are more heart attacks in the spring. There are more heart attacks also in the fall, but it's not statistically significant. There are judges that are grumpier in the spring, so the logic is there. So let's make some changes and go forward for the good citizens of the state of Georgia. Mr. President, I'll yield the well. Thank you.
Senator has yielded the well. The chair recognizes the senator from the 22nd, the minority whip, to speak to the measure.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll be brief, and I also concur that I would appreciate being able to come to an understanding, but I did want to state some opposition to the bill that we've been having now in our particular area. As you know, Georgia is the #1 state to do business, and part of that #1 state to do business designation comes from the CSRA, the Central Savannah River area and the Augusta area specifically. Part of that, of course, is that we have the Georgia Cyber Center, we have Fort Gordon, we have the Savannah River site, and we also have a strong healthcare community. And one of the concerns that has been raised, many concerns that have been raised within the business community and within the healthcare community within our area, is that having this different time schedule will actually put us at odds, specifically in our case with South Carolina. And that we have many of our residents, or many of our persons who work in Augusta and in the CSRA, come from that particular region. And that this possibly could cause a very good hardship with them. And so when we talk about the Cyber Center, that is a state, of course, was gracious enough to allow us to be able to have the Cyber Center. We employ many persons from South Carolina. Savannah Riverside employs over 10,000 persons from South Carolina. And this is going to present a tremendous burden on that particular, the way we basically do business with each other. And we hope that we can come to a satisfactory resolution. But at this point in time, because of those concerns, we're in opposition to this particular bill at this time. And with that, I'll yield the well, Mr. President.
Senator has yielded the well. Does any other senator wish to speak? Chair recognizes the senator from the 41st to speak to the measure.
Thank you, Mr. President. After receiving more emails than I can tell you all about on this issue, I rise to speak in opposition to the bill as we have it. The good doctor is right that the change in time has resulted in a number of higher instances of heart attacks and car accidents, and nobody in this body wants to be a part of that. But the thing is that those heart attacks and car accidents are caused by people's sleep deprivation. And there are good doctors, sleep doctors, who have told us that we can mitigate these problems by simply taking some personal responsibility. We know that daylight savings time is coming well in advance, and the sleep scientists tell us that if we simply go to bed 15 minutes earlier the week prior to the time change and wake up 30 minutes earlier the week prior to the time change, then those negative effects that we experience that are directly connected to sleep deprivation will be moderated. Here's the thing. I can tell you a long list of reasons and ways that drinking alcohol causes us problems. Drinking alcohol causes car accidents. Drinking alcohol causes liver damage and all kinds of problems. But we as a body have never said, let's prohibit drinking alcohol. Instead, we invite Georgians to drink responsibly. And we have a whole list of ways to help people enjoy that recreational activity responsibly. So when it comes to time change, that's my only invitation, is that we would simply invite Georgians to address it responsibly. Go to bed 15 minutes early the week leading up to it, and we'll all be a whole lot safer and a whole lot healthier. I urge you to vote no on this bill. Thank you. I yield the well.
Senator has yielded the well. Does any other senator wish to speak for or against the measure? The chair sees none. The question is on the adoption of the committee substitute. Is there objection to adoption of the committee substitute? The chair hears none. The committee sub is adopted. Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which is favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Is there objection to the main question being ordered? The chair hears none, and the main question is ordered. Questions on the passage of the bill by substitute. All those in favor vote yea. Opposed, nay. The secretary will unlock the machine. Have all senators voted? Have all senators voted? Mr. Secretary, please close the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 21, the nays are 26, and this bill has failed to receive the constitutional majority. For what purpose does the senator from the first rise?
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion for reconsideration on the next legislative day.
You can state that as a request.
Not as a motion, as a request for reconsideration.
So the rules provide for this late in session that we have to vote on it immediately following the vote. So
immediately following. Okay.
So would you like to make the motion?
Yes, I would. Motion to reconsider.
Senator from the first has asked for a motion to reconsider. All those in favor? Is there objection to the motion? No objection. Chair recognizes the senator from the first for a motion.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to table this reconsideration.
Senator from the first has moved that.
Motion to table the bill.
Senator from the first has made a motion that House Bill 44 be placed on the table. Is there objection? The chair hears none. And is there objection? Is there objection? There is objection. Would the senator from the 1st like to speak to his motion?
Thank you, Mr. President. As I have said on multiple occasions, this is a work in progress. I have made the commitment to work with the House on this, and I have made the commitment that from Wes Cantrell and I put this on his bill. Since this is his last year in the legislature, I wanted him to get credit. I did not want to take credit for this piece of legislation. And you know, my thoughts is that we may consider a non-binding referendum on the ballot to get more input. I am not here to make a singular decision by the Senate or any other house. So I would ask that you bear with me on this, and we would move to move this and keep this moving across the finish line if we can. Thank you.
Senator from the 1st has made a motion that this chamber put on the table House Bill 44. For what purpose does the Minority Leader rise?
Parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry.
You cannot motion to table after the bill has been lost. You can reconsider.
There was no objection to the reconsideration.
Well, then it should have been reconsidered.
If there was objection to the reconsideration, then that would stand true. All those in favor of placing House Bill 44 on the table, vote yea. Opposed, nay. The Secretary will unlock the machine. Have all senators voted? Have all senators voted? Mr. Secretary, please close the machine. On the motion, the yeas are 36, the nays are 7, and House Bill 44 has been placed on the table. Mr. Secretary, please read the caption of House Bill 286.
House Bill 286 by Representative Gaines of the 117th and others. A bill to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 8 of Title 36 of the OCJ relating to county police so as to restrict the ability of county governing authorities to reduce funding for county police departments and for other purposes. The Senate Committee on Public Safety recommends that this bill do pass by substitute. Respectfully submitted, Senator Albers of the 56th, Chairman. The Senate Public Safety Committee offers the following substitute to House Bill 286, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 8 of Title 36 of the OCJ relating to county police so as to restrict the ability of county governing authorities to reduce funding for county police departments and for other purposes. This completes the order, Mr. President.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 29th to present House Bill 286.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As is said many times in this chamber, this is just a simple bill. What House Bill 286 does is it forbids any county or city government which has established a police force from decreasing the annual budget of that police force by more than 5% of its previous year's budget, except in certain circumstances. And it forbids a county or, I apologize, those exceptions are the county or city governing authority ensures an equal or greater level of law enforcement services are provided pursuant to an intergovernmental agreement, such as if they partner an MOU with a sheriff's office or another law enforcement agency within the county. The second way is the county or city is court-ordered to begin providing an increased public service which necessitates budgetary adjustments, or if a city or county governing authority does propose to reduce the budget of the police force by more than 5%, it must adopt the proposed budget rate at an advertised public meeting. The above provisions do not apply to the police force employing less than 25 law enforcement officers, which I know are the vast majority here in the state of Georgia. The other language that you see on the bill is the payroll deduction for legal representation language that this body has seen before and voted out. Basically what this does, it just protects the public safety within the county or the municipality to prevent I think everyone sees the things that are going on around our country right now related to law enforcement, and what this does is just guarantee the citizens of any community that they're not caught up in the politics that it revolves around policing, and offers protection. I respectfully ask for the support of all the senators, and Mr. President, if there are no questions, I'll yield the well.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 4th for a question.
Senator Yield.
I do.
Senator, thank you for bringing this up. Why do we have 5% instead of no percent in the bill?
Because county revenue tends to fluctuate throughout the counties, and one of the primary requirements of municipalities in the state of Georgia is to provide police and fire service. So if revenue were down and a larger investment had to be made into, say, the fire side, or a larger investment had to be made somewhere else, water, sewage, some other investment, that we would not hamstring the municipality or the authority from being able to take care of those projects, and while in those occasions to reduce the budget 5%.
Thank you, sir.
Just to protect the overall operation.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 12th for a question. She waves. Oh, wrong button. Gotcha. Chair, do you continue to yield?
I do.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 42nd for a question.
Thank you, Mr. President. Will the senator yield?
Yes, ma'am.
I want to make sure I understand the legislation. So if a county or city reduce their police budget by 5% from the previous budget cycle, that would be a violation?
What line are you reading, Senator?
I'm just trying to assess the overall impact of the legislation. Okay. Make sure I understand what it does.
Yes, ma'am. I'll recover the exceptions.
The exceptions being if revenue falls.
Correct.
Revenue falls.
Yes, ma'am.
So, but if, would it be the case that if, for example, we're 5 years from now and in a particular county, crime is down a significant amount and there were some other urgent needs such as road repair, the county would be prohibited from taking care of the more urgent need of the road repair in that circumstance? Is that true? Would that be true?
But it would be based on the revenues of the county. If the county revenues had not brought in the needed amount to be able to fund the law enforcement agency within beyond the 5% and not be able to do the road repairs, then I think the exception would cover that. But if revenues are up, it would prohibit the county from taking 5% from the law enforcement budget and directing it to the road repairs.
Even if crime were down?
Well, law enforcement's not necessarily tied to the crime rates. Patrols are consistent, and so you don't reduce your number of personnel, you don't reduce your equipment costs and things of that nature based on crime rates, and crime rates come from multiple sources. A lot of times the law enforcement's primary role in many cases is more prevention of crime than necessarily addressing crime. Currently right now in the city of Atlanta, the crime rates are up, but the arrests are down. So the officers are still going out there patrolling, attempting to prevent crime, but not necessarily engaging, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Another question. So if like this takes it another direction, I should make sure I understand. So if like a tornado damaged City Hall, you could not use any funds from, you could strip other departments of funds to repair City Hall, but you would not be able to do that with police.
Well, first of all, I don't know if I would necessarily call it stripping funds, but yes, you would be able to move money from that budget up to the 5% amount.
So you could move 4%, but not 5% to repair the destroyed City Hall.
Correct.
Do we similarly restrict local governments from managing any other item of their budget?
Yeah, I assume the senator may have done some research, but I didn't look in to see if there was any other legislation or laws on the books that prohibited any other local government or municipality from removing money from one budget line to another. I know that that most budget lines dealing with local governments, municipalities, they have the operation side, then they have the personnel side, and usually any monies that are moved out from the operations side as opposed to what are normally considered fixed costs on the personnel side, which covers salaries, benefits, things of that nature. But to the short answer to your question is I'm not aware of what the procedures of any governments are as far as managing other departments other than public safety.
I'm talking about what we require, because wouldn't it be true that we're actually not elected to manage the local budgets?
No, but I think what we're doing is we're doing what the Georgia Constitution allows us to do.
Well, sure, but
Yeah.
you know, but we're not. Are we not? We are not. Are we not elected to manage the budget of DeKalb County? I am a senator from DeKalb, but I have not been elected to manage their budget. I'm just wondering if you disagree.
I think what we're elected to do is serve the almost 11 million Georgians that are in the state of Georgia. And there are times when we have to take steps and use the authority that we have to protect those individuals. And I think in the last recent year, we've seen at least 2 examples for sure where communities have attempted to negatively impact the public safety of their citizens. And I think for the Georgia State Senate to sit idly by and allow our citizens to be exposed to more danger than they're already exposed to would be irresponsible. And I think probably very much counter to what we are up here to do.
Well, that leads me to my final question, if you would yield for one more.
Absolutely.
So in the circumstance, so it sounds like we're sort of being very big brother and heavy-handed, like we know what you need even if you don't know what you need. Okay, from what you just said. So that leads to my question, which is, if the citizens of my county are up in arms about potholes everywhere, which they are, and there's been no call to defund any police departments, reduce it, and any of it in my county, and my commissioners said, we have a serious urgent need because we had this tornado or just general wear and tear, the roads are a mess. They would not be able to be responsive to their voters by moving any money from police. Is that correct?
No, ma'am, that's incorrect. I think I answered that earlier when you asked me about the 4%. If
I'm
they
talking
could move
about
the
6%. Say it's 6%. Say they say we need, our people are really worked up about the roads. That is an urgent need. We don't have drama related to police in DeKalb County, which is actually true. And we need to utilize this money to handle what the people of DeKalb County really are up in arms about, which is the horrible situation of the roads. They would not, we would be saying that those commissioners are unable to meet the democratic wishes of the people of DeKalb County. Is that correct?
No, I think they would be. I think probably the first step would be to prioritize the services that are offered, and I think those are listed out fairly in the 11 requirements to be a municipality in Georgia are listed out fairly clearly, and the number 1 being police and fire. So, but I do appreciate the questions.
Do we similarly protect fire?
Do we similarly? Yes, we protect fire.
Do we have a bill like this for fire?
No, ma'am. Not that
Why
I'm
not?
aware of.
Do you continue to yield for questions?
If someone else has questions, I would.
Yep, thank you.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 10th for a question.
Thank you, Mr. President. Would the senator yield?
Yes, sir.
Senator, are you familiar with home rule?
I am very familiar with it.
And do you agree with it?
I do agree with it.
Senator, do you further yield?
I do.
Do you feel this bill is in violation of home rule?
It is not. If you read the home rule section within the Georgia Constitution, this bill absolutely complies with home rule based on how subsection, or I believe it's subparagraph B, describes home rule and the authority of the General Assembly when it comes to addressing issues within municipalities here in the state of Georgia.
Senator, further yield?
I'll yield for one more question. Yes, sir.
Senator, there was an outcry during the summer regarding Black Lives Matter and defunding the police. Is this bill a reaction to those activities this past summer?
No, sir. This bill is addressing the issue in two municipalities here in the state of Georgia where some radical commissioners attempted to defund law enforcement without any citizen input. And in one city, their plan failed by one vote, and in the other city, they met, basically extorted a compromise from the leadership of that city. That's what it's in response to.
Senator, further yield?
No, sir, I don't. I'll yield the well.
Trying to get it in.
Senator has yielded the well. Chair recognizes the senator from the 12th to speak to the measure.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is a very slippery slope for us, but I did want to make some comments in regards to this bill. In my communities of Southwest Georgia, the #1 agents of public safety and physical well-being are law enforcement, our police officers. In communities of color and diversity, we are usually the first ones targeted by criminal elements of drug trafficking, human trafficking, door-to-door scammers, phone scammers, assault, robbery, and other despicable criminal illegal actions. There is a real need for more, not less, policing. For these actions, we certainly do not want to diminish relations with our public safety officials through funding discussions. But what we have become starkly aware of is more funding for public safety, not less, is needed. This is in my area of the state. More intensive training of officers, especially in the areas of mental illness awareness, diversity training, and community relations. And more individuals from diverse backgrounds become trainers of these officers and participate in the training process for these police officers. Lastly, I am a lifelong Democrat, and I can unequivocally say that I have not heard any of my Democratic colleagues speak of defunding the police, of which we are sometimes ourselves targeted using those words. We need and we support public safety officers that are well trained to respect and manage difficult situations as best they can, that are well trained through the use of diversity training and especially mental health training as well. And for the above reasons that I've just given you and my personal observations, I will vote for this bill. Thank you, Mr. President.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 34th to speak to the measure.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the Senate. I rise to echo
what the senator of the 12th just said. And with that being said, I am going to yield the well, but I did want to rise just to echo, simply because there are too many people who are not willing to go into law enforcement because of pay and other inequities. So I won't belabor it. The hour is long, and I know it's going to be a long day. I'll yield the well.
Senator has yielded the well. Does any other senator wish to speak for or against the measure? Does the senator from the 29th wish to close debate? He waives. The question is on the adoption of the committee sub. Is there objection to adoption of the committee sub? Chair hears none. The committee sub is adopted. Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the committee which is favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Is there objection to the main question being ordered? The chair hears none. The main question is ordered. Questions on the passage of the bill by substitute. All those in favor vote yea. Opposed nay. The secretary will unlock the machine. Have all senators voted? Mr. Secretary, please close the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 36, the nays are 15. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed by substitute.
Mr. Secretary, if you would read H.R. 183.
House Resolution 183 by Representative Knight of the 130th and others. A resolution urging the Congress of the United States to pass the Recovering America's Wildlife Act and for other purposes. The Senate Committee on Natural Resources and the Environment recommends that this resolution do pass. Respectfully submitted, Senator McNeil of the 3rd District, Vice Chairman. This completes the order, Mr. President.
Call upon the senator from the 7th to speak to the bill.
Thank you, Mr. President. H.R. 183 simply urges Congress to pass the Recovering American Wildlife Act, and it would be a good thing for our state because we would be eligible for about $25 million to help us implement our state wildlife plan, and I would appreciate your support on this measure. With that, Mr. President, if there are no questions, I yield the will.
You have no questions, Senator. It's not up yet. Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which is favorable to adoption of the resolution? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Is there objection to the main question now being ordered? The chair hears none. The questions are ordered. The question is on the adoption of the resolution. All those in favor vote yea. Those opposed vote nay. Mr. Secretary, if you unlock the machines. Have all senators voted? Have all senators voted? Have all senators voted? The hallway is clear. Mr. Secretary, if you would not lock the machines, until right now. Thank you very much. On the adoption of the resolution, the yeas are 45, the nays are 0. This bill, having received the requisite majority, is therefore adopted. Mr. Secretary, if you'll read HB 173.
House Bill 173 by Representative Benton of the 31st and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Code Section 47-20-87 of the OCGA, leading to eligible large retirement systems authorized to invest in certain alternative investments, so as to increase the percentage of an eligible large retirement system's assets that may be invested in alternative investments, and for other purposes. The Senate Committee on Retirement recommends that this bill do pass. Respectfully submitted, Senator Robertson from the 29th Chairman. This completes the order, Mr. President.
Thank you. I call upon the senator from the city that all roads lead to, senator from the 52nd.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill does two things in the Retirement Committee. The first, the employee retirement system has 7 members on their board. 2 of them, by statute, have to be members who have at least 5 years of credible service in the employee retirement system. And what this is doing is saying that when our employee retirement group makes a recommendation of who they would like the appointments to be, that the board would make sure that they give them the same consideration and evaluate their credentials. It's not a shall, it's a may, but it's urging them to seriously consider their recommendations in appointing these 2 members. The second part has to do with the amount of investments in alternative funds. A few years back, we changed the TRS and the ERS, the 2 big systems, to 5%. There's some others that have also been at 5%, and the firefighters have been at 10%. What this bill would do would let the others, not the firefighters would stay at 10%, the other funds would go to the ability to do up to 10%. Now, the employee retirement system said since that change, they have not reached the 5% level, and they're fine with leaving it at 5%, and the TRS system as well. The firefighters who have been at the 10% in these investments have outperformed the others' investments by about 3%. They're a high risk, high reward type of thing, and they've done very well at 10%. And the feeling was that we would let many of these other funds to have the same thing. The firefighters have had 10%, but again, ERS and TRS will stay exactly as they are at 5%. If there's no questions, I'll yield to Will.
Senator, you have a couple of questions. Senator from the 46 is called upon for a question.
Thank you, Mr. President. Will the senator yield?
I'll yield.
I need a little guidance on what these alternative investments include, since it's not really stated in the bill. I remember this coming up before, and seemed like there were derivatives and stock options and all kind of really highly leveraged, highly speculative investments. Can you give me some guidance as to exactly what we're talking about?
Yeah, I mean, really, alternative investments, what they're not is stocks, bonds, or cash. Those are regular investments. These could be private equity funds, they could be real estate, they could be commodities, hedge funds, they could be carbon credits, venture capital, precious metals would be in there too. So it's all those in a category. Some of these have done very well, such as Bitcoin, I guess, over the years, and some of them haven't, but this isn't for Bitcoin. Pretty much everything that they've done has been in the private equity funds. These are equity funds that are not on the stock exchange itself, but work very similar to a stock would do, and that's where the majority of the investments have been in, and these have performed very well. You can have bad years in them, but the history would say if you had any of these for 20 years or more, that they will do better, and these are long-term funds that we're dealing with.
Senator, yield for a
I
further
yield.
question.
Mhm.
And this says by eligible large retirement systems. That doesn't give me much guidance as which retirement systems
Well,
we're talking
it's, you've got legislative, you've got judicial, of course, the firefighters have already been in there. I don't remember all of them, but it's pretty much any fund except the two biggest ones, ERS and TRS.
Okay, and a final question? Okay. I see us periodically in the budget having to allocate funds to shore up retirement plans for the teachers, and other groups that maybe their retirement investments hadn't done as well as they wanted when they have guaranteed pensions. Will we be on the hook if it turns out these alternative investments don't produce the expected income and we still owe the retirement benefits?
Well, you could look at it and say if everybody is the firefighters, we probably wouldn't be putting money into these, but at the same time, while they bring in more money over the long haul, there are short-term risks to them, and you could have some short-term risks. That's why it's been limited to a low amount of these. But most those of you that deal with stocks and stuff, it's a diversified portfolio. It varies with your age, if you're 20s or 60s, but this really should be looked at. We've actually been pretty conservative on these funds, but I think it should be looked at as if you're in your 20s, because these funds are for the long haul, not just the person that's getting off at the end, but what the growth of that fund's going to be over decades.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Call upon the senator from the 27th for a question.
Thank you, Mr. President. Chairman, yield.
I'll yield.
I just want to clarify the question from from the chairman before me. It's my understanding, is it not correct that these funds cannot lever or buy on margin? There's already protections in place. The word leverage was mentioned before, but that's actually not correct. Is that true?
There were things put in place because of Orange County, California, among others, many years ago, and Enron and stuff that put some protections in there. But again, these pretty much are private equity funds that generally perform better than the typical 500 market.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
No further questions, Senator.
And I will add that our funds are doing extremely well this year, as a lot of you are in yours, and I know some of them are up 30-something%. Thank you. I urge your favorable support on this bill.
Thank you, Senator. Does any other senator wish to speak for or against the measure? The chair hears none. Is there objection to the agreeing to the report of the committee which is favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Is there objection to the main question being ordered? The chair hears none. The question is ordered. The question is on the passage of the bill. All those in favor vote yea. Those opposed vote nay. Mr. Secretary, if you unlock the machines. Senator from the 24th, why do you rise?
Mr. President, I'd like to excuse the senator from the 23rd. For business
Can't be
inside
excused
the-
once the voting has been opened. I'm sorry. Once voting has been opened, you cannot be. We can do it immediately following this vote. Here he comes in behind you. Here, he's back already. All right. Have all senators voted? Have all senators voted? Is the hallway clear? Mr. Doorkeeper, is the hallway clear? Somebody punch the doorkeeper. There he is. He doesn't give me. The trooper gives me a thumbs up. The hallway's clear. Mr. Secretary, if you'll lock the machines. The yeas are 47, the nays are 1. This measure, having received the requisite majority, is therefore passed. Mr. Secretary, if you'll read House Bill 34.
House Bill 34 by Representative Belton of the 112th and others. A bill to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 44 of Title 43 of the OCGA relating to speech-language pathologists and audiologists so as to revise licensing provisions, to enter into an interstate compact known as the Audiology and Speech-Language Pathology Interstate Compact, and for other purposes. The Senate Committee on Health and Human Services recommends that this bill do pass. Respectfully submitted, Senator Watson of the 1st, Chairman. This completes the order, Mr. President.
Senator from the 36th, why do you rise?
I'd like to ask unanimous consent to excuse the senator from the 22nd.
The senator from the
22nd.
22nd
Thank you.
is excused. Where are we? Call upon the senator from the 34th to speak to the bill. Senator from the 34th, are you here? Here she is. That senator from the 34th is a woman of distinction and decorum. Would you not agree? Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the Senate. I rise to ask for your favorable support of Senate Bill 34. This legislation would join Georgia into a compact to facilitate interstate practice of audiology and speech-language pathology to allow multi-state practice. Pathologists could practice by telehealth, which we know during this pandemic has been so widely used and so widely accepted. We passed this bill out of this chamber last session unanimously, and I ask that you would please, let's do that once again. And if I could just add a footnote, the Pentagon wants this bill as well. I'll yield the well.
Does any other senator wish to speak for or against the measure? The chair hears none. Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the committee as favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Is there objection to the main question being ordered? The chair hears none. The main question is now ordered. The question on the passage of the bill. All those in favor vote yea. Those opposed vote nay. Mr. Secretary, if you unlock the machines. Mr. Doorkeeper, the hallway's clear. Mr. Secretary, if you'll close the machines. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 44, the nays are 0. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Mr. Secretary, if you would read House Bill 141.
House Bill 141 by Representative Gaines of the 117th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 15 of Title 17 of the OCGA relating to victim compensation so as to provide for requirements for awards made from the Georgia Crime Victims Emergency Fund to medical service providers and for other purposes. The Committee of the Senate on Rules recommends that this bill do pass by substitute. Respectfully submitted, Senator Mullis of the 53rd, Chairman. The Senate Committee on Rules offers the following substitute to House Bill 141, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 15 of Title 17 of the OCGA relating to victim compensation so as to provide for requirements for awards made from the Georgia Crime Victims Emergency Fund to medical service providers and for other purposes. This completes the order, Mr. President.
Chair calls upon the senator from the 1st to present the bill. I beg your pardon, 53rd. Sorry, Ben.
It's easy to get Senator from the first and myself confused. We look so much alike. So I want to thank you. This is a good bill. This is House Bill 141. I'd like to thank the Senator from the 46 actually for working with me on this. We're really involved in this issue, and we've all worked together on this. This is regarding the commission that the First Lady of Georgia works with us regarding child trafficking, and that is such a terrible disease on our nation and our state. This simply awards compensation from the workers' compensation schedule to victims with medical issues, and the medical provider will be paid according to those compensations, and their payments will be at full charges. I'll be glad to talk about even more of this issue, but that's a simple fact. Be glad to take any questions, Mr. President.
You have no questions, Senator.
Thank you. I appreciate your vote, and we'll continue in our work for crime victims and against child traffickers. Thank you.
Does any of the senator wish to speak for or against the measure? The question is on the adoption of the committee substitute. Is there objection to the adoption of the committee substitute? Hearing none, the committee substitute is adopted. Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the committee is favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Is there objection to the main question being ordered? The chair hears none. The question is ordered. The question is on the passage of the bill by substitute. All those in favor, yea. Those opposed, nay. Mr. Secretary, unlock machines. Mr. Doorkeeper, the hallway's clear. I got that lady of decorum and style rushing to her seat. The gentlelady from the 34th. Have all senators voted? Mr. Secretary, if you'll lock the machines. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 48, the nays are 0. This bill, having received the constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Mr. Secretary, if you'll read House Resolution 24.
House Resolution 24 by Representatives Mallow of the 163rd and others, a resolution compensating Dominic Brian Lucci and for other purposes. The Senate Committee on Appropriations recommends that this bill do pass. Respectfully submitted, Senator Tillery of the 17th. Chairman, this completes the order. Senators Lucas of the 26th and others offers the following Amendment 1 to House Resolution 24 by striking line 1 and replacing with compensating Dominic Brian Lucci, compensating Ms. Jukeith Robinson Sr. and for other purposes, and striking line 42 and replacing it with to be made to his estate or heirs and for other purposes. This completes the order, Mr. President.
Call upon the senator from the 1st to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is one of three resolutions on three men that were convicted in Savannah over 25 years ago. The Supreme Court overruled this conviction after it was determined that the DA withheld evidence that would have most likely overturned this conviction. It was a unanimous decision, and it was unequivocal from that perspective, but it was also, I should note that the eyewitness, which is the least reliable of witnesses, also had recanted his story, and so all three of these men served 25 years in prison. The way that the amount was come to of $1 million annuity with $50,000 lump sum initially was that if they had stayed in the military, and all three of these men served their country at Hunter Army Airfield in the city of Savannah, that if they had stayed in the military, they would have had received $2 million. So this is half of what they would have earned if they had stayed in the military. It is not very often that we get to right a wrong here in the General Assembly, but this is our privilege and our honor and our responsibility to do this. And I think this is the right thing to do for these three gentlemen that were convicted wrongly. Mr. President, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
You have questions, Senator. The senator from the second is called upon for a question. Beg your pardon. You have no questions, Senator.
Thank you, and I ask for your favorable consideration on this is House Resolution 24. I'll be back up for 25 and 26 for those three individuals.
Thank you, Senator. Call upon the senator from the second to speak to the bill.
Thank you, Mr. President. I stand with the senator from the first to ask that you vote in favor of House Resolution 24, House Resolution 25, and House Resolution 26. Let me give you a little history. On January 1992, Mark Jones, Kenneth Gardner, and Dominic Lucy were young United States Army soldiers stationed at Fort Stewart. That's in Hinesville, Georgia. Each of these men were eager to serve his country in the military and planned to make the military career out of the Army. All three men hoped to pursue their American dream, to get married, to serve their country, to have children. Mr. Jones at that time was engaged to be married. And these three men, as celebrating their wedding, took a bachelor party and went 50 miles to visit Savannah, Georgia. Now, they didn't know that, or they was unaware that not long after they left Hinesville, Georgia that evening, a drive-by shooting had occurred in Savannah that left a man named Stanley Jackson dead. The murder was partially witnessed by a single bystander who told the police a two-door sedan containing three occupants had fired a gun to that crime. These three men were charged. They were innocent. They were servicemen, serving their country, doing their duty, just having a good time, celebrating James's wedding. Their case was overturned by the state Supreme Court. The witness recanted his testimony, and the evidence was suppressed in their case. The DA didn't present the Yamacraw report that would have exonerated these three men. They served time in prison for a crime they did not commit. They lost the better part of their lives. They lost opportunity to get married, have children, lost opportunity to serve our country. Lest somehow we cannot give them their lives back. But what we can do is give them a little retribution for the time they've served in prison. I urge you to support all three resolutions. Mr. President, I yield the well.
Thank you, Senator. Recognize the senator from the 26th to speak to his amendment.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ladies and gentlemen of the Senate. This amendment
was basically a resolution that was defeated in the Senate Appropriations. It's about a robbery where somebody got killed, and someone said that somebody else was involved in it when they were his friends. He got tried by himself and was found not guilty. Then he was retried again by the DA with the folks that were caught in the robbery and charged for the same crime. He disagreed with it, his lawyer did, and objected to being tried after he had been tried one time and found not guilty. In the process, second trial, they found him guilty of the charges that he was found not guilty of in the very first place. He appealed his case, and it got dead docket. Somebody in Columbus, Georgia, wanted to make sure that he went to prison. Got dead docketed for 10 years. 10 years. And when the Court of Appeals got to it, the Court of Appeals overturned the verdict. They overturned it. Now, let me say this. I think something is wrong when we get caught up in the judicial system. We're about to vote on money, and I hate to say it, where 3 whites will get $1 million apiece. This black guy was like $532,000. And it was defeated in the Appropriations Committee because somebody said he was guilty. Well, how can you be guilty when the courts have said that you're not guilty, and then the DA go back and retry you, which the DA probably knew was wrong in the very beginning because the judge agreed for him to be able to appeal it. And on the appeal, it sat there for 10 years. Dead docket. Didn't even go up to the appellate courts. So somebody in that county wanted to make sure he did time because they didn't send the paperwork up. And once the paperwork got there and the Court of Appeals looked at it, they say you cannot try a man for double jeopardy. Now, I don't know what happened. I just looked at the case, and it should have been approved in the appropriation process. Now, what I don't want to happen is this. 3 whites, 1 black. 3 whites get approved. The black doesn't get approved. You end up going and get a federal judge, and then we end up getting a declaratory judgment against us, the state. As the gentleman from the 46th and gentleman from the 18th would say, prima facie, which means on his face it was wrong to do what they did. Ladies and gentlemen, I rest my case.
Call upon the gentleman from the 30th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Without commentary on the amendment from my good friend from Macon area, I do have a question about germaneness on this amendment. Individuals come.
Thank you, the gentleman from the 30th. The point of order has been raised, pointing out that these are 2 different individuals, 2 different dates, 2 different locations. The chair finds the amendment is not germane because it addresses a completely different subject matter. The amendment is not in order. State your inquiry.
Mr. President, isn't it true that this resolution basically joins the ones that are being compensated, this one was left out? What's germane about it?
As we discussed, or I have stated, it's 2 different locations, 2 different venues, 2 different dates, two different individuals. I understand your point, but it is ruled non-germane. Thank you, gentlemen from the 22nd.
Well,
We will stand at ease for 20 minutes. Oh, I'm sorry. Senator from the 26th, have you finished your point of order? Just want to make sure. Okay, we will stand at ease for 20 minutes.